calls to just drop out. All right, joining me now for some healthy conversation, we have our political panel, Democratic political strategist and former assistant U.S. attorney, David Katz, and Republican strategist, analyst, and American business and media senior executive and CEO, Jacquie Jordan. I appreciate both of you for being here on a Saturday. I really do. But let's start here. This week, Trump dealt with a string of court losses on hot-button issues, like immigration. Jordan, I want to start here with you. What are your thoughts here as we move forward? Harvard funding, tariffs, National Guard deployment. We're closely monitoring all of them, obviously. But David, actually, let's go with David. David, how do you see these playing out?
Well, I think a lot of this was performative by Trump, and I think that he sent a message. He's very unhappy with Harvard, the Ivy League, elitism. He's very unhappy with, people in this country who are from other countries who are here illegally. And so all of this made a great performance. It was very provocative, and it played to his base. Of course, the problem was that a lot of it wasn't carefully vetted legally, and so he took actions that were illegal. And of course, the courts, including judges appointed by him, had to say that it was illegal, and they did that over and over again. The raid in L.A. Was found to be illegal because you can send troops to protect federal buildings, but you can't send them to protect federal employees. Think about it. The right, can you imagine what the Republicans would think if Newsom were the president and he sent the troops to accompany IRS agents on audits on the pretext that, well, everywhere you send a federal employee, they need protection, and not by other federal employees, not by other ICE agents, not by other IRS agents. No, they need the troops as they go around and audit people. As the EPA goes around and does EPA business, they need to have federal troops going with them. The Republicans would go nuts if that were happening, if the shoe were on the other foot. And like the tariffs thing, I think the tariffs is going to be reversed even by the U.S. Supreme Court, because the tariffs, there was not an emergency. We have drugs coming into the country. We have a trade imbalance. We've had that for decades, and yet there's not an emergent situation. There wasn't an emergency, so the Court of Appeals ruled against them on the tariffs too. And of course, on some of these other cases, Harvard, you go on, they've ruled against the president, not because they're left-wingers, because we have the rule of law in this country, and he's moved too fast, he's moved too recklessly, and he hasn't obeyed the law. Thank God we have judges who stand up for the law in this country.
All right, Jacquie, I saw you patiently waiting. I knew you were chopping at the bit to get in there. I saw you fix the camera a little bit. Jacquie, what do Republicans need to do to overcome these setbacks, if you will?
Well, it's good to see you, Dave. Good to see you, Xavier. I love that President Trump is the president of law and order. And sometimes in leadership in extreme situations, you have to take action and apologize later. And he does that. And I think that's a show of leadership and force. When we think about what's going on with ICE across the country, and people have very short-term memories, but just a couple of years ago, cities were burning down with no law and order for the George Floyd protests, for BLM. I was living in the city of Los Angeles myself at the time, and we were getting text messages, alerts that the march was coming down Wilshire Boulevard, the march was turning right, and they've got weapons, and it was like the most terrorizing experience to live through, honestly. And and that's Karen Bass, who's mayor, and let the Pacific Palisades burn down, and of course Governor Newsom, who is in my opinion is a nightmare. So a lot of us left for safe states. That was they were Republican safe states, and myself included. So I think that is what President Donald Trump is showing, and he's had many opportunities where he could go against the judicial system, and he has been very patient. He's lived through personal lawfare during his not when he was in office, and he stayed with the process. So I think he's very respectful of the rule of law, and I think they'll go through the course in the places where appeals are available and necessary, and and we'll see how it plays out. We've seen when the courts have been very stacked against him, just like we did in the defamation case in New York City. And it turned out to be exactly what it was, which was a nothing burrito, but it was great political theater for the Democrats, and they used it at every opportunity that they can. And so just as Dave was setting up in his conversation, that he sends the troops in, and of course, if it is a Republican state, they would, they are more welcome to it. But in most Republican states, they don't need to bring it in to make the citizens feel safe. And I'll make one last point. When you're a property taxpayer, you're a shareholder in your community. Anybody who's paying taxes is a shareholder in their community, and we pay for the right to be safe. And I believe that President Donald Trump and a lot of the Republican governors in their states have been able to manage that. And and I think a lot of people, very sane citizens, are done protecting the criminals.
All right, so I want to talk about safety a little bit. And you said nothing burrito. I was thinking nothing burger. It's dinner time. Everybody's hungry. Chicago, Baltimore, and New Orleans, which I know New Orleans is Democrat-led, but it has a Republican governor there. But they're also awaiting, whether or not the National Guard will be deployed. Trump is also targeting other blue cities in areas where crime is, already down. Obviously, no one's saying crime is non-existent. Crime is everywhere. I've been to plenty of these cities. Yes. But Jacquie, are these repercussions to this move? Is this?
Well, Tennessee is a perfect example because it's on the crime list. But it's the Democratic city of Memphis that puts the state of Tennessee on the crime list. It's not necessarily Knoxville, and it's certainly not Nashville that puts Tennessee on the crime list in the same way that Memphis does. So what is it about the leadership in those communities where safety is not prioritized in a way that would make the shareholding, tax-paying citizens of the municipalities feel safe, where there would be less crime? And I think I think those statistics speak for themselves.
And I was going to give Dave a chance to hop in. Dave, before you respond, I just want to tell everybody at home what you're watching right now. That's here in Chicago, a protest. Obviously, they have been talking about the potential for increased and ramped up immigration enforcement by ICE, up to 300 agents here in town. That's what they're saying. This is a protest, protesting that. Dave, what's your response to Jacquie?
Well, Xavier, I was a federal prosecutor under President Reagan, and now I'm a criminal defense attorney in federal cases. And I have, years of experience at looking at this crime issue, not, from a propaganda or, performative aspect, but really how to fight crime. And that's what Trump is not doing. The way you really fight crime is not send troops into places where they're not trained in law enforcement. He should have expanded the budget of the FBI, not shed good FBI agents on political grounds. They should be monitoring wiretaps so they can go after organized crime in all of these cities, whether they're Democratic or Republican, go after the gangs, go after organized criminals and so forth. But he hasn't increased the budget. He's put a really incompetent duo in there at the FBI. I mean, they're a joke. If the shoe were on the other foot and the Democrats put inexperienced people in there like that, the Republicans would be howling. So he hasn't done the things that really would work. I want to fight crime. Crime in the poor communities hurts the poor, and in minority communities, it hurts the minorities. And so we've always had minority voices that want to fight crime, but in an effective way, not in a performative way, not in some places like almost a white nationalist way. We sure don't want that in America, in any cities.
All right, David Katz, Jacquie Jordan, we have to leave it there, but that was a healthy conversation. I appreciate both of you and your views and your opinions, really do. In that conversation, it's certainly not going away. The problem didn't happen overnight. It's not going to go away overnight. Thank you both very much.
Likewise.
Great to be with you, Xavier. Great to be with you.
All right, the Trump administration ramping